Hello, biology class. This is the content video for Unit 2, Section 4, and this is the first of 2 or 3 videos. I haven't decided. It's at least 2. We're going to cover how cells get energy. So this one will be about photosynthesis. The next one will be about cellular respiration, and it may also be about chemosynthesis, or that one will get its own video. Time will tell. All right, so the first thing we need to cover when talking about how cells get energy is how different organisms get energy. So there are 2 different classifications of organisms we need to worry about here: autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs make their own food. This includes plants, some protists, and some bacteria. Heterotrophs can't make their own food, and they have to obtain energy from outside sources. That means they have to eat something. All right, so we've got animals, fungi, and bacteria. Yeah, I know fungi don't shove food in their mouths like you and I do, but they do break down other organisms, much like the bacteria would. A good way to remember this is auto means self, and hetero means different. So autotroph literally means eat self, and heterotroph means eat something else. I know my head's in the way. It'll move out of the way in a second. So energy is, in general, used to metabolize, and all of the actual chemical reactions that go on in a cell are called the metabolism of the cell. So in general, on the right here, on the other side of the screen, is the ATP-ADP cycle, which shows how energy is used up and released, or is created, right? It's not actually created, it's stored as ATP when food is broken down. This can also be stored long-term as glucose or fructose, or pretty much any of the other ones that end in OSE. That means it's a sugar. You might have heard of lactose. Lactose is a milk sugar, right? Adenosine triphosphate is the most important biological molecule. It is our energy source. It is abbreviated ATP. Adenosine diphosphate is abbreviated ADP. And this is the general structure of those molecules. So up top here we have adenosine triphosphate. So we've got adenosine group, right? This gray thing. You don't need to know what it is, just know that it's an adenosine group. So it's a part of a molecule. And then 3 phosphate groups. Again, you don't need to know what phosphates are here, I just need you to know that there are 3 of them. They're these green spheres. And they are bound together with a ribose. So it looks something like this. When energy is released for the cell to use, a phosphate is broken off, and it becomes 2 phosphates instead of 3 phosphates, so we get diphosphate. All right, so adenosine diphosphate looks almost exactly the same, except for it's a little shorter. And then that cycle can continue. Plants, which is what we're going to focus on today. I know my head's in the way again. It's going to move around a lot in this video. So plants use photosynthesis to make ATP. Remember, this is make here isn't talking about creating from nothing. It means it's assembling it out of different molecules. On your screen here, this long code here, this chemical equation, is the basic breakdown of photosynthesis. So we have the, right underneath it in words, is the word equation for photosynthesis. So we've got CO2, carbon dioxide, reacting with H2O, that's water, to produce C6H12O6, that's glucose, and oxygen, O2. All right, I need you to know that there are equal parts of carbon dioxide and water. So you need just as much carbon dioxide as you do water on the molecular level, right? Same number of them. and they react with energy gathered from light. So a lot of times you'll see the word light written up here, and they form glucose and oxygen. This is a two-stage process. Stage 1 is light reactions, and stage 2 are light-independent reactions. Guess what the light reactions use? Light. Guess what the light-independent reactions use? Not light. They don't need light. We'll talk about them in a second. There are also two alternative pathways that photosynthesis can travel. We're mainly going to talk about when those would be used. You don't need to know as much about them, so we'll cover them real quick and in a hurry at the end. All right, so photosynthesis. I know my head's in the way. It's going to move again. So light reactions occur in the thylakoid membrane of chloroplasts. So remember when we were talking about those cell organelles a little bit ago, and a chloroplast sort of looked like a stack of pancakes? In the cell membrane of the thylakoid inside the actual chloroplast, so we're really, really tiny here, there's green pigment. That's called chlorophyll. There's also some red and some yellow pigment that absorbs light as well, just not as efficiently. And when the leaves change, that's the different chlorophylls leaving the plant as they pretty much get broken down. Again, not super important. We're focusing on photosynthesis right now. So in the membrane of the chlorophyll, or of the chloroplast in the thylakoid membrane, we have the absorption of light energy from the sun, right? And that energy is used to convert ADP, that adenosine diphosphate, to adenosine triphosphate. It uses water to do this. So it uses up water, all right? When it adds that phosphate group, it uses the water to do that, all right? It also converts something called NADP plus, or NADP ions, to NADPH. I do not need you to focus on that as much as the ADP, ATP, all right? A byproduct of the light reactions is oxygen being released. So that's not the product that the plant cares about, right? Plants don't use oxygen, they give it off. So this is an extra thing that the plant gives off. We, humans, use it, right? We breathe oxygen. That's what lets us live. We'll talk more about that when we talk about cellular respiration. So the other half of light reactions are the light-independent reactions. They happen inside the chloroplasts, but they do not happen in the thylakoid. So they happen in what's called the stroma. This is kind of like cytoplasm, but it's inside the chloroplast. All right? So stroma. That's one of the vocab words. Inside, the light-independent reactions are also called the Calvin cycle. If you go into the medical field, you'll probably have to memorize the Calvin cycle at some point in time. It's annoying, but what I want you to get out of it here is that the Calvin cycle takes ATP and breaks it down into ADP. All right? It also steps up production of ATP, so it uses a little bit of ATP to make a lot of ATP. It's an exponential growth process, all right, where, it takes a little bit of money to make money. Same concept, all right? It also converts NADP ion, or NADPH into NADP ions. That one's not as important. Like I said, I want you to focus on the ADP-ATP interactions here. The Calvin cycle also stores all that extra energy as sugar, but it needs to absorb CO2 to do so, all right? So the carbon dioxide from the air is absorbed, and through the phosphorylation, or dephosphorylation in this case, breaking off of phosphate groups of the ATP, it gets all that energy gets stored as sugar, specifically glucose and fructose for plants. It also makes starches, but what I want you to focus on is the sugar. All right, and I'm just going to go back to this equation real quick. So the carbon in sugar, right, the glucose here, comes not from the ground, it comes from the air. All right, and so the carbon joins with the H2O to get glucose. That leaves this O2 left on the left side. That gets released as oxygen. All right, like I said, this equation is the breakdown for photosynthesis. If you get this, you can get a lot of photosynthesis. This is the big image that shows you everything that I need you to worry about in photosynthesis. Right, so we've got the solar energy being absorbed into the thylakoid membrane of the chlorophyll in the chloroplast. This whole green thing is the chloroplast. Water is absorbed and oxygen is given off. Those are the light-dependent reactions. The light-independent reactions happen outside the thylakoid membrane, so they happen in the stroma. ATP gets a phosphate group removed from it, and it turns into a DP, adenosine diphosphate. Carbon dioxide is absorbed, and energy is stored in glucose, sugar. All right. If you want to take a screenshot of this or draw it on your own, that would be a great resource for you to study from. All right. So the two other pathways for energy storage for plants are C4 and CAM. And we just call these C4 plants and CAM plants. I don't need you to memorize what C4 and CAM stand for. I need you to know where they live. All right, so C4 plants live in very hot climates. They may still get enough water, but it gets very hot during the day. So the cell pores, the openings in the leaves, just like you have very tiny openings in your face and your skin, your pores, plant cells have those too, are kept closed during hot days so water can't escape, so it can't evaporate out of the leaf or transpire out of the leaf. This, however, also means that carbon dioxide cannot be absorbed into the leaf. Our two examples of this are sugarcane and corn, plants that grow very well in very hot climates. The other one is CAM plants, C-A-M, and these live in areas with very little fresh water. All right, so deserts, salt marshes. Remember, salt marshes are salt water, not fresh water. It's in the name. All right, and some examples of that are cacti, so cactus. Orchids are flowers. They grow in very dry climates. And pineapples, because pineapples are originally from an area of the world that doesn't get a lot of rain. Right? I know that we think about them as Hawaiian, but they're not from Hawaii. All right, so we talked about photosynthesis today. Our next few videos are going to be about cellular respiration and chemosynthesis. So this is our first section that's going to be a multi-part section. I know usually I break them down a lot smaller than this, but there's a lot to talk about in just how cells get energy. All right, remember, this is a great resource. I'm actually going to end the video with this up to make it easier for you to take a screen capture of it. I may also post this picture straight to the LMS if enough people ask me for it. All right, have a good one.